coffee, baseball savant, fantasy baseball analytics. Welcome into all the subscribers. We're doing a working meeting here today. I think of pitchers a little bit like storybooks, and they have to be read like storybooks over their whole career to see what's going to be the next chapter in their story. And sometimes we have to clear up any kind of preconceived notions or feelings that we may have for these pitchers, and we have to start fresh, and we have to see where is this pitcher and their story. So we're going to be telling some of those stories today. I got some other stuff. We're going to be getting 400 level. I want to get right out of the gates with a pro tip that I felt like I left out last week when we were doing hitters. Going on your baseball savant, go into the search. What you have in search is some menus that are going to allow you to pull out some particular statistics. And now we're starting to get really sharky in here because we got to stay out in front of the pack. And guys are chasing us. Guys are catching up. They're starting to see our players. They're starting to see how we're getting there. So we're going to have to stay out in front to keep our competitive edge. And there's not a lot of stones left unturned, but I'm going to show you one right here that supports what I was saying about my top 5 hitters. This is exit velocity on barrels only. In the first column of the search menu, switch player type to batter. Go to the third column and go to quality of contact on the drop down. Only pick the barrels. In the middle column, the very bottom, it says sort by, and then it says pitches. Switch that to average exit velocity. And what we've done here, what we're trying to get from this search is we're going to isolate who's hitting their barrels the hardest. This can be found on the individual player pages, and you can scroll over. It's kind of buried in there. I'll show you where that is later, but this allows us to look at it with everybody sorted out. And this is an amazing search. This is something we touched on at the end of last year, but why would we wait to use that when we have it right here in front of us early? So you'll see pitches really means ball strikes here. This is going to be the number of essentially barrels because we limited it to barrels. And here we have, did I still get pitchers? Quality of contact, barrels. It didn't click. I got to get it again. So what we have is underneath pitches, that's just going to be ball strikes. But when we limit it like this, something really amazing pops out. Number 5 on the list with 56, although it says pitches, those are 56 barrels. Giancarlo Stanton averages 111.8 on his exit velocity on his barrels only. He remains the big man on campus. He remains the king of the hill. You can guarantee that Giancarlo Stanton is going back to the well for more and more home runs next season. He's hitting the ball the hardest. But the 2 players I gotta see in my top 5, Ronald Acuna and Shohei Ohtani. Acuna, 44 barrels. Ohtani, 78 barrels, averaging 109.7 on their exit velocity on barrels only. These guys are smoking the ball. What I found here, I'm gonna get out in front of it, is I think a good exit velocity on barrels is probably 105 plus. Anything between 105 up to obviously Acuna and Ohtani level, 109.7 is going to be exceptional. Bo Bichette went into last season with, I believe, a 104 exit velocity on barrels. So this is different. Average exit velocity for the big boys, for the Judge and the Stantons, is 93, 92, 93, 94, 95 is the upper end. But when you pull that out and isolate only the barrels, the sweetest of sweet contact, you'll start to see some other numbers. And these guys have to be assessed on your sheet appropriately. This is us getting power and getting out in front. Shohei Ohtani, 109.7. Ronald Acuna Jr., 109.7. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 109.1. Miguel Sano, 109.1. Truly elite exit velocity on barrels. We know Sano's problem with the batting average. Nelson Cruz, 108.9. There's a reason he keeps doing this, hitting 30 to 40 home runs for the last 8 seasons, regardless of his age. And it's that monstrous exit velocity on barrels. A little bit of your man Mercedes. So the guys with 1, 2, 3, 4, that doesn't matter. They hit only a couple. So it's not that important to me. Jorge Soler is still hitting hard, 108.5. Joey Gallo, 108.2. And this is the reason I said Yordan Alvarez cannot be ignored. 108.1 with Aaron Judge, 108.1. It starts to get very interesting here, and you're going to see the reason that I pushed up some of these guys on my list that are going to be some undeniable targets that people may not be able to pick apart if they're only looking at exit velocity. Because my concern is I don't want bad contact. I don't want line drives or guys that are hitting a lot of foul balls. That could be switching the distribution of where the average exit velocity is versus the sweetness, and things continue to pop out. Byron Buxton, who had struggled with health last season, absolutely still 31 barrels, 108. Exit velocity on barrels only. Fernando Tatis Jr., 107.9. Marcell Ozuna, 107.8. Juan Soto, 107.8. So there's numbers to support. I'm not just dreaming. I'm not just dreaming a pie in the sky when I want to take those 5, Shohei Ohtani, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna, Vlad, and Soto in my top 5 because they have some of the sweetest exit velocity on barrels. Sure, Giancarlo and other guys, so really start pushing all of these guys up. Bryce Harper, 107.7. CJ Cron, 107.6. We're going to respect that. We're going to respect that going into the season. Mike Zunino, 107.5. Maybe we have to look at that for catchers. Kyle Schwarber, 107.3. And there he is, only 27 barrels as he battled through injury. Luis Robert, 107.3. So you guys can go through this search all you want. You can see Josh Donaldson, Manny Machado, Pete Alonso, 106.8. Who's hitting a lot of barrels? Rafael Devers, 106.6. And then that exit velocity on barrels starts to cool off a little bit. You got Matt Olson, Josh Bell, Gary Sanchez, Jared Walsh, 106.1. And I do think there's a difference there. I do like that 108, 109 for super elite, untouchable exit velocity on barrels only. That's just another tool. So I wanted to get in there. I wanted to show you how that search tool can be used. But we're going to switch over to pitchers here. And we're going to talk a little bit more. I talked about this percentile rankings leaderboard and how exceptional I thought this was as a tool. You can search xWOBA, xBA, xSlug, xISO, xOBP, barrels, exit velocity. You're looking for the reverse where pitchers are actually suppressing this. And I'm having a hard time because I'm trying to pick apart the difference between, say, a Walker Buehler and maybe a Freddie Peralta. And how is Freddie Peralta's fastball more effective than Walker Buehler's at a slower velocity? And guys can be picked apart. I learned that Freddie is using a lot of deception. He's using a little bit of a crossover step where his lead plant foot crosses over across the mound, and then he comes cross body with the fastball. And Freddie Peralta is very, very hard to hit in the zone. But I want to show you something to look at here, a really nice way. And you'll see the elite pitchers, they have to suppress swinging strike, whiff rates. Those are obviously important. But there's an additional piece here that I'm noticing is important for elite pitchers. They have to suppress XBA, XSlug, XISO. They have to press those rates down. And that's as important as the whiff, and it's hard to capture exactly the way they're able to do it. But with Freddie, I'm seeing it's something that's deception in the windup, and we're not necessarily going to catch that in just statistics measuring exit velocity or outcomes, which can be affected again by BABIP on the pitcher side. But something very, very cute here is if you sort by K percentage on the percentile rankings leaderboard for pitchers, right next to it you have K percentage and you have BB percentage. One of our favorite metrics is K to BB percentage numerically. But if we look at it from a percentile perspective, we get to see some very important things. If Jake Degram is both 100 in K percentage and 99 in walk percentage, it's total dominance. Liam Hendricks is 99 in K percentage, but 100 in walk percentage. That's dominance. You'll see where a guy can go wrong. This is what I said about identifying some of the blemishes. Matt Barnes, Devin Williams, and Raciel Iglesias, all 98% in K percentage. So they're going to be getting Ks. They're going to be filthy, but you can see right next to it, if you look at the BB percentage, Matt Barnes is 39% on walks. Devin Williams, who we don't love, is 11 on walks. So he's walky, which will drive up your whip. But then you see a Raciel Iglesias with 98 on K percentage and then 96 on the BB percentage. And that's why he's a very popular pick. So you can scroll down and try to separate who's really getting me that K percentage with a really elite walk percentage. And there he is, Corbin Burns, 97 on the K, 92 on the BB. Max Scherzer, 96 on the K, 92 on the BB. And by looking at the elite players, we can start to see the mold for who are the intermediate, the medium to high level players, and who might be making the jump versus who might have a little bit of a flaw. Of course, Garrett Cole, 95 on the K percentage, 88 on the BB percentage. Why is he the number one overall pitcher, especially if you look at some of his home run problems? I'm not sure. I know he's elite, but it's not perfect. Shane Bieber, good, 94 on the K percentage, but 52 on the BB percentage. He struggled a little bit last season. And of course, you can scroll back across and see how the guys were doing on their XBAs, X-slugs, X-ISOs. But just looking at the particular column, Ryan Presley, 94 to 92. Dylan Cease, I'm very high and we'll get into in a minute, 93 on the K percentage, but only a 32 on the BB percentage. So it's just a really effective tool to start to look at guys. You can see that whiff rate is going to correlate with K percentage. Something interesting to think about is a guy who's able to get whiffs, but not so much Ks. Might be something with sequencing or his ability to put somebody away or pitch count. You can keep going down here. Who else do I like that might pop out? Colin McHugh, dominant reliever. Aaron Nola, 86 on the K percentage, 92 on the BB percentage. Brandon Woodruff, 86 K, 81 BB. So I just want to show you guys that tool, which I thought was particularly important. And I just want to go back to last season. We had some issues with health, and I don't think we anticipated this the right way. The shortened season affected hitters, negatively impacted hitters more because you can't simulate game shape just in practice. You have to be able to play the games. And I believe what happened was hitters had more time off, their legs got stale. Sure, they tried to put in the work, but you couldn't simulate the game environment, 9 innings, the field, the whole season. On the flip side, pitchers got a rest. Arms got time off, elbows rested, shoulders rested. They were able to ramp up after basically a long soak of rest. And what we saw for me was hitters who couldn't get their legs underneath them. The hammies weren't right. Guys were tight. Guys weren't able to get into game shape. When they pushed it too hard, things were pulling up on them. Pitchers did the opposite. But I think that this pendulum might be swinging back in a bad way. I don't hear enough talk about it. There's the Verducci report. Verducci identified that when pitchers increase their innings limits or their innings productivity from season to season by more than a 30% increase, it tended to lead to forearm strains, shoulder strains, Tommy John. And it was something we had to watch with young pitchers who say maybe jump from 90 to 100 innings in the minors, going up to 160, 70, 80 innings the next season as their team was trying to make a run or they pitched into the playoffs. And the next season, the injuries start to pop up. I'm concerned for pitchers across the entire MLB because all you're going to see is short innings from the short season, long innings when they try to fire it back up for this season. So I don't know. I think pitcher health is terribly at risk. So we've got to devise a strategy where we have a lot of good arms, but I don't want to pay top dollar for them because a pitcher can go in an instant, and they can be gone for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, a season, depending on how bad the forearm strain is, the shoulder. When they come back, they may never be right. So I think that that's important. And as I go through this pictures, I just want to talk about, we put this work in beforehand because we're not going to have all the pictures, but we know players better so that when mistakes are made on the wire, we're there to scoop it up. I may not necessarily have wanted to draft a Charlie Morton, but a Charlie Morton can never be left on waivers like that. I will pick up a free Charlie Morton on waivers and ride him while he's hot. And so that's why we know players in a little bit more detail. So let me jump over here. Let me talk about some of the pitchers that I'm seeing. And I do want to kind of start from the top. We go to a Jake Degram. I'm going to go over to the Baseball Savant first here. We're going to tell a little bit of a story and see how some of these guys work. Jake Degram, you can go down to pitch tracking, and that'll show you the season by season for the pitcher. It's broken down by pitch. And just an overview here, why percentile ranking is becoming important, other basic metrics that we compare everything to. There's more things going on the player page in Baseball Savant each season. Player pages are different this season than they were last season. There's more information. You just got to be willing to go in there and look. Scroll down. The movement situation, it's not helping me. So I'm not looking at movement, the break, the stuff. I don't see any magic there. I'm not able to tell why Freddie Peralta's fastball is a little bit better than Walker Buehler's at a slower speed by movement, because release point, deception, it's not really captured in movement, so skip past that. But run values by pitch, this is excellent. This is swing take profile stuff. Heart, chase, waist, shadow. By pitch, for the pitcher, right there. And I love run values by pitch. You can see that Jake Degram working a -15 on the four-seamer, a -14 on the slider, and right across the way it gives you all the other metrics about the pitch. Batting average on his slider, .096. The four-seamer, .158. There's a reason Degram was on a historic run with the sub-2 ERA. It's because neither pitch was touchable. The slider had a 58% whiff. The four-seamer had a 30%, and even the changeup worked. Spin direction, I'm not as concerned. Here it shows up again. They grab a snapshot of the percentile rankings leaderboard, scroll down to percentile rankings for the pitcher, and then they give it year by year. So now you can start to compare. Let's look at Jake Degram's K percentage to BB percentage as he's gotten better through his career. 2015, 85 to 88. 2016, a little step back. 2017, not great. And then there he is. He breaks out in 2018 with a 94 to 89. Continues through 2019, 2020, 2021. Just complete dominance. Some pitchers that throw hard, they may give up barrels. So barrel suppression isn't always the key. You see that Jake gets some of that. And I just have to mention an old tool that we always like on the plate discipline side on Baseball Savant. We compared zone contact to chase. We need zone contact sub 80. We need chase more than 30%. And we like a whiff rate more than 30%. You can give or take a little bit there. You may not see even a Walker Buehler is not high in the whiff. He might have the zone contact and the chase good, but the whiff doesn't necessarily cross 30, but you know what kind of pitcher you're dealing with. Jake Degram with a 70 zone contact, a 39% chase, and a 41% whiff. Unheard of categories. Unheard of, unthinkable. What I can't believe from Jake is watching the fastball mature from 2018, 96 miles an hour. 2019, 96.9. 2020, 98.5. And finally, the icing on the cake, 2021, Jake Degram tossing 99.2 mile an hour cheddar for a 30% whiff rate, suppressing batting average down to 1.158. Completely unhittable. Also potentially untenable amounts of velocity, as we're going to have to figure out what Jake is doing with the partial UCL tear that he didn't have mended up or surgery performed on it. He thinks he's healthy. He's going to be pitching through this tear. Physically, he's going to be one of the most high-risk reward pitchers to get involved with this season. Health is always going to be a concern, but it just shows how unbelievable certain players can get. I encourage you to look at Corbin Burnes and Max Scherzer, but I want to go to a guy that we've talked about before, who I'm very high on, to tell you what I'm seeing here. And it is Lucas Giolito, who I'm going back into the well here. I'm going back to Fangraphs because that's where I'm getting the cleanest game logs. I'm going to click on the game logs here. We're going to take a quick scan of what was happening with Giolito. Were there some blow-ups? A little bit. He gave up 7-5 early in the season. Gave up 6, hit a pretty good patch. He went Houston, Milwaukee, Kansas City, only giving up one earned, hit a blow-up. He really finished the season pretty strong. A couple 4-inning games I don't love, but it's a guy whose stuff I really like a lot. We get over to the pitch type. We see what he's working. It's a 94-mile-an-hour fastball with an 85-mile-an-hour slider, sprinkling in curveball, working a healthy amount of change. But we get over to the plate discipline here, and that's where I start seeing the upside. In swinging strike, we see a guy that touched 19, 18, 23, 17, 21, 18. At the end of the season, 20%, 26, 19, 20% swinging strike percentage per game to finish the season with a 15.3 swinging strike. Lucas Giolito is 6'6". He's going to be 27 years old. This is a pitcher that's going to continue to get better. I was high on him last season. He didn't deliver perfectly well, but I could see every single last thing coming together, as well as the White Sox being better this season. To see a Lucas Giolito get much, much better this season, it's going to be someone I'm targeting. So when I thread this through salary cap, is that I want to know if there is somebody I'm going to be willing to go up and get to anchor my staff, but I've got to be able to push up some guys that I'm happy with, slightly below them. Lucas Giolito, absolutely one of those guys. A guy that I love, but I gotta identify some things that I get a little bit concerned about. The other thing you have to watch out is for this minimum innings pitched, that it's gonna hide some guys. So I've gotta switch it over. I switch my minimum innings pitched over to 100, and suddenly it turns loose. A Dylan Cease. The other guy I'm looking for here is Carlos Rodon. I love Carlos Rodon, but what kind of Carlos Rodon am I going to get next season? He finished the season third after Corbin Burnes and Max Scherzer with a 27.9 K to BB percentage. I mean, the story of Carlos, we'll use Fangraphs here. I mean, this is what I'm saying about, you can't look back to see what kind of pitcher this was. We have to take these pitchers for who they are right now and try to predict who they're going to be next season. Carlos Rodon always had the pedigree, known for a very good slider. Over his career, his fastball velocity, 93.4, 93, 93. Injuries, 91, 92. What did he do as a 29-year-old going into the season, so he's 28 probably last season, to reach back and find a fastball velocity sitting at 95.4? Little bit less slider usage, more changeup usage down to 85. He's a whole new kind of pitcher, just unbelievable. This is where I got a little nervous with Carlos. Starts off the season just blazing, a 12 strikeout game, 13, 10, 8, 8, 9, 8, 8, 9, 8, 10. striking guys out with recaptured fastball velocity. We can go to the pitch type here. The guy starts the season tossing 98 cheddar. It works it up to 96. We've got him at Detroit and Houston tossing 97.6, 97.3. Where I got a little bit nervous in season is seeing him go from 97 to 95, 96. It trailed off at the end of the year. I know he got shut down a little bit for the shoulder. I don't see where the gap in his games was perfectly, but he finished the season at 93 miles an hour, 94, 93. I don't know which Carlos we're getting next season. The Carlos that tosses 96, 97 is dominant. The Carlos at 93, 94, I'm not sure how perfect those whiff rates are going to be, but we go over to the plate discipline and we see a guy who can tick 21, 19, 20, 16, 18. Not as amazing as Giolito on the swinging strike, but his floor is incredible. His low might have been a 12. He had one game of a 9. If you throw that out, Carlos Rodon swinging strike sat at 12 as a low. He averaged the season with a 15% swinging strike percentage. So there you see a guy that is just dominant on that swinging strike side. So as I'm sorting through these pitchers, I really struggle with the Walker Buehler and how to assess, the love for him. And I don't necessarily see that a pitcher, not the way hitters have huge jumps to make. Pitchers don't necessarily have extreme upside coming through from season after season. It's almost the reverse. As they go to work, they're wearing down. They're risking more injury over time. We look at a Walker Buehler here. The K per 9 sits at 9.19. The walks 2.25. The difference, the improvement for Walker Buehler from 2020 to 2021 is a home run per 9 going from 1.7, terrible, down to 0.82. That changed his ERA by a point from 3.44 to 2.47. But when I get into Walker Buehler's game log, we see a guy who's doing something a little bit differently. He's going deep into games. He's working 6 innings, 7 innings, 6, 7. He worked deep all the time. It wasn't necessarily strikeouty. We go to the pitch type, we see what he's firing off. He's sitting 95, 96 with the Ched. True 5 picks Mitch, using everything. Sliders from time to time, cutters, curveballs that go from 7% to 25%. A changeup, probably his least used pitch, but he sprinkles it in there. You get over to the plate discipline, and there's several games where he is at 4, 9, 8, 7 for the swinging strike. His high, Walker Buehler ends the season with an 11.6 swinging strike. So it's just hard for me. While he's a beloved pitcher going into the season, I don't know if I see a giant swinging strike upside. I think you may just see the same pitcher that you saw from last season, who goes deep into games, pounds zones, pounds shadow. A guy who I find really interesting when we're trying to tell the story about a pitcher. Let's see if I can find, I want to pull up a Zack Wheeler, a guy that we've talked about many times before. We'll just have to type him in here. Because we've said Wheeler has the stuff to be good, but why isn't he good enough yet? Baseball Savant will catch this, and I think one thing that helps is just a team change. The team change leads to the staff change, the philosophy will change. And we get down here to the pitch tracking, we open it up, we see the season after season. Zach's been throwing hard for a while. 2017, Zach throwing 94.8, 18, 95.8, 2019, 96.8, 96.9. Last season, he ratcheted it up to 97.2 miles per hour. on the four-seam fastball. The part I never understood is if the four-seamer is only .224 on batting average, why would he throw the sinker with a .251? Just shelve it. We've been waiting for him to throw the sinker less, and he finally did. He started throwing more sliders to a tune of .196, getting a 30% whiff rate. The curveball is a 42% whiff rate. That extra mile per hour and velocity is better. So suddenly, at 31 years old, Zack Wheeler just decides to use his arsenal better to become a better pitcher. I expect all these gains to hold. If he just stopped throwing the sinker, we could be in an even better place with him this season. Let's go down here to the run values by pitch. I mean, it was the best season of his career. He gets over to Philly. The four-seamer's -14, the slider's -11, the sinker's -12 somehow. It's his best season. We see the plate discipline zone contact goes sub 80 to 78%. The chase sits at 30%. The whiff rate, the best of his career, 26%, because he's using more sliders. You can see it on the percentile rankings. He's a whole new pitcher compared to 2017. 4 years later in 2021, he's got elite numbers across the board with maybe not exceptional K percentage. So that's a Zack Wheeler. So we have to look at these guys' stories. We have to look at what they're using here. I got another guy who I found pretty interesting, who are whole new kinds of pitchers. And let me get the systems up here so that they're moving around. It's a Brandon Woodruff. The Wood. We take a peek at Brandon Woodruff over his career. I'm going back over to Fangraphs because I want to see what kind of mix this guy is using. 2017, Brandon Woodruff is throwing 94. Mostly fastballs. That could be some sinkers. He's fastball slider with a little bit of change. In 2021, Brandon Woodruff is tossing 96.5. These guys are finding velo. These guys are finding ways to add velo even later in their career. He comes off that slider a little bit. We see usage droppage to 92%, and we see the curveball come up to 16% usage, sprinkling in change. We're going to have to go over to Baseball Savant to get a little bit better feel for the evolution here. I mean, in 2019, Brandon Woodruff only threw 37 curveballs, but there was a little bit of a whiff rate, a little bit of a whiff on it. In 2020, it wasn't even a good pitch. We're not with these guys in the gym. We're not with these guys training or doing bullpens. We don't know what they're going to do. But Brandon Woodruff in 2021, fastball, sinker. Again, we don't know why he's throwing it. The fastball sits 96.5. The batting average against his fastball is 190 with a 30% whiff. But then he's throwing sinker to give up 242 with only a 15% whiff. It's not a good pitch for him. But he's breaking off a curveball suddenly more than the changeup or the slider. With a 31% whiff, the changeup still works, suppressing a batting average of 140. Guys can't hit Brandon Woodruff's curveball. So he's a new pitcher than he was before. He's able to suppress hard hit with it. Let's get down here. Let's see what the plate discipline makeup. Run value on pitches. We can see that the four-seamer, the sinker, maybe it's inducing grounders. Maybe it's keeping the ball in the yard. K to BB percentage. Zone contact for Brandon Woodruff, 75.8. Oh my goodness, that is excellent. Brandon Woodruff is amazing there. His chase, best of his career at 32%. Whiff rate, up to 28%. Brandon Woodruff, at just 28 years old, is going to come into this next season and do work, guys. He's going to do work. So he's going to be somebody that I'm looking for heavily again next season, helping you guys kind of get in here and diagnose some of these changes in performance. And and just get rid of your preconceived notions about a pitcher. We're looking for young arms. We're looking for live arms. I like Dylan Cease. I see a live arm. Anything could happen. These guys splash onto the scene with live arms and they can't be hit. It's no country for old men. Dylan Cease is 26 years old. Last season, 2021, the walks, yes, they're not good. But I see a pitcher that went from, in 2019, it was 4 walks per 9. In 2020, it was 5 walks per 9. In 2021, he's down to 3.69 walks per 9. But the K per 9 is 12.28. Oh my God. I mean, there's a level of filth for Dylan Cease that can't be ignored. Guys, look at these strikeouts per game. He different on the game logs. I'm on the game log on Fangraphs. 11, 10, 10, 10, 11, 10, 11, 10. You can't teach this. Swinging strike and whiff rate isn't going to suddenly crop up. This is a gift. Did I need him to go deeper into games? Yes, there's a little bit of 5-inning games. But on the earned run side, there's not too much blow-ups. 2-3, 2-3 with Ks. Let's go to the pitch type. And this is where it really gets exciting. Dylan Cease is hurling 97 mile an hour heat, touching 98 to close the season. Mixed in with the slider, he's got curveball and change that he's working on. I mean, Dylan Cease has filthy stuff, filthy upside. Let's look at the swinging strikes. What could he touch? 20, 20, 23, 14, 14, 21. He finished the season with an average swinging strike rate of 14.8. If you're not risk adverse, if you're okay, if you believe in guys getting better, he's 26 years old. The prospect report was a 70 grade fastball. Dylan Cease is starting to harness what is very hard stuff, what is very whiffy stuff. And you've got to start to respect the kind of pitcher that he is going into the season. So this is some of the analysis that I'm doing here. I got to talk about how the pitchers are shaping up. After Degram, Burns, and Scherzer, the guys that are going to be popular, Wheeler, Buehler, Woodruff. I want to get pieces of Giolito. We're looking at Bieber, Trevor Rogers, and Rhoda. The guys that I'm starting to accept, the guys that I'm trying to get rid of my preconceived notions, Kevin Gausman, Lance McCullers, and I believe Ranger Suarez is here to be looked at. Going back to my search, I'm getting really, really gritty with the stats. We got a little bit more time here. Go into the search on Baseball Savant. When you get comfortable with this search page and we know what we want and what we're looking for, what I'm starting to do is I'm first column switch the pitcher, season 2021, quality of contact, doesn't matter, make sure that that's unchecked. But what you have in the middle column is you have something called attack zone. If you look at the bottom there, you can group select, and I may go down and group select, let's say, the heart. Obviously, I spent some more time in the shadow, and what I learned is chase and waste. This is the problem. Pitchers don't want to throw waste because hitters don't swing at waste. They don't get whiff there. The same for chase. So much more happens in the shadow. But what I found is if I highlight the heart in the attack zone, if I look at just pitchers, and I go to sort by something like, let's say, xwOBA, which is Baseball Savant's probably their best metric for suppressing contact. Let's see if this search comes up. And it takes it a little bit to process it. What I'm doing is I'm dissecting what's happening with the zones. I'm leaving basic O swing and Z swing and Z contact. And I'm refining it. I'm refining it for heart and for shadow just to get a little bit more granular on what guys are doing here. And this thing sorts in the wrong way in ascending order. And you can ignore the guys that don't pitch. Again, pitches is probably the balls being hit. And you're going to have to, I couldn't get it to switch the other order. But you can see guys down here. You can see Kenley Jansen in the heart. 0.210 xwOBA. hard to hit. Blake Trinan, an elite closer in the heart, where hitters are supposed to be able to be good. Blake Trinan, .216 in the heart, meaning he can get the ball in here. But what I found, which was amazing that I love, is Freddie Peralta, .249 ex-WOBA in the heart. Freddie can challenge guys. Freddie is better in the heart than he is in the shadow. Not that that's a good thing, because we don't want him in the heart, but it's something to consider. Where Walker Buehler is better than Freddie Peralta in the shadow, Freddie Peralta is better than Walker Buehler in the heart. Going into next season, I believe Freddie Peralta is going to continue his dominance. He's 26 years old. Don't be late to like Freddie Peralta. It's happening right now. But what amazingly, who's going to drive me up amazingly high on this pitcher is Ranger Suarez is .252 in the heart on ex-WOBA. These guys have to be liked. They have to be drafted because they're competing with closer level performance. Keep making your way up. You might say, well, where are some of these other guys? You know, here's a Tyler Matzek, a reliever for the Braves, .274. He just relieves. Alek Manoah, .279 in the heart. I love it. Carlos Rodon, .284 in the heart. So when I was talking about Carlos Rodon, his dominant run, that fastball velocity, that slider, we just found 4 pitchers. There's Corbin Burns, .276 in the heart. So Freddie Peralta and Ranger Suarez are in that stratosphere of those elite players that they could continue to be dominant. And you can kind of see it here. Jake Degram is .292 in the heart. The thing with Jake Degram is that he doesn't spend a lot of time there. So that ex-WOBA doesn't affect him as much. You'd have to cross it with how many pitches are being thrown there. So I want to show you guys that. I want to show you how that is getting a little bit cute. And that's where I'm living, to really kind of get comfortable with these pitchers, to start to want them and appreciate them. We end up better than our peers by getting rid of some of our preconceived notions about pitchers. Not just saying, I don't like Kevin Gausman because I never liked him before. I've got to come to a point and say, Gausman's split finger is one of the most dominant pitches in baseball, and he's going to keep riding it to a lot of strikeouts. Let me come over here before we close out, because this is just a little bit of a working conversation on pitchers. I'm going to drop some more names. Baseball Savant, leaderboards, swing take profile. This is just going to reiterate. I mentioned this thing about sorting by pitchers. So on swing take profile, you got to reverse it for pitchers. And we see a Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, Brandon Woodruff, Burns, Suarez, they're all there. Langston McCullers Jr., minus 32. He's minus 35 in the heart, minus 36 in the shadow. I really, really like Lance McCullers here. But how do you kind of pick these guys apart? We look at Julio Urias, who we really like, and then we see a Chris Bassett pop up. We see Logan Webb pop up. But to help you distinguish, because like I was saying, that this run value is cumulative. So, you know, why isn't Jake Degram 1? Why isn't Jake Degram above Walker Buehler? Jake Degram is better pitcher than Walker Buehler. But if you got swing take profile, Walker Buehler's at the top. This is how to clear this up. This is the intersection here. Pitches. When you sort by pitches, you can look at the accumulation. Walker Buehler we really like because he went deeper into games, 6 innings, 7 innings, through 3,475 pitches. The most when I sort by pitches, more than Morton, Eovaldi, Wheeler, Malley, everyone else. So Walker Buehler is putting in work, and that allowed him to have a minus 42. Zack Wheeler at minus 37. So having a high negative run value is important, but it's important to have it on less pitches. So Max Scherzer's -41 is a little bit better than Walker Buehler because it's less pitches. You got to decide how you feel about Kevin Gausman's -30. Gausman's not on Scherzer's level and probably not even Walker's level because it's only a -30. Urias, Garrett Cole, keep scrolling down. We like Lance McCullers at a -32. But down here, even lower than them, once we sorted by pitches, Brandon Woodruff on 2,900 pitches is a -39. So Woodruff is challenging maybe even Max Scherzer for how nasty he is because he did it in less pitches. And you'll continue to see this work. Now, Corbin Burns, even less pitches than Woodruff. So here's the intersection. You got to kind of intersect your feelings. Corbin Burns threw about 250 less pitches and got to a -36. So I'd still say the way we read this, Corbin Burns is better than Brandon Woodruff. That's why it's so important to sort by pitches. Does this keep playing out? You got Lance Lynn there, -29 on less pitches. Keep going down. Freddie Peralta, Logan Webb, even less pitches, -30, -28. Bassett pops out to mind. Carlos Rodon, 2,200 pitches, -31. A little bit of give and take there. Shohei Ohtani, -24. The deep blue, the coloration will even pop up for you. But what I really like, we get down here, Ranger Suarez. Only 1,600 pitches, -35 on a very strong sinker. Ranger Suarez is tough, guys. You know, I really, really like Ranger Suarez from what the number says. We can keep going down here. You'll start to see that some closers mix in. Garrett Whitlock, Giovanni Gallegos, -22. Way down here. See, Blake Trinan on only 1,200 pitches is a -32. Jake Degram on 1,200 pitches is a -31. So Jake Degram starts to enter kind of closer territory for filth. Kenley Jansen, Liam Hendricks way down here, -22s on just closer volume pitches. So this is another little tool. And what's tough, we do have qualified here, is that Baseball Savant doesn't always let you narrow the data, resort the data. Sometimes that's why you have to go over to Fangraphs. So some guys that I'm pushing up on here, Dylan Cease. You know, I gotta tell you guys another story. I mean, it's just each pitcher is a story, and we're starting to accumulate. We're starting to refresh the database. I mean, we have a sense because we grind draft prep each season. So we have notions of these guys, but we got to check back in and see where they are in their pitching evolution. Clayton Kershaw, how did he do it? I go, Clayton Kershaw? Let's check him on Fangraphs. Let me check him on Fangraphs first. Because I really believe, I want to verify, I believe he finished the season with the 15% swinging strike rate on the season. I'm like, how is Clayton doing this? I'm in his game logs. He's going deep into games. He had an 11K game, a 13K game. Obviously, the health is going to be a little bit of an issue. The fastball is sitting at 90 to 91. The slider usage is off the charts. The slider is only 87. He sprinkles in some curveball. But we see a guy who finished the season with a plate discipline of 16.7. Clayton, 19, 25, 21, 21, 22, 24, 22, 25. Kershaw is making guys whiff. We got to jump over to his Baseball Savant. We got to see what's happening with Clayton. Let's go back a little further. Let's go to 2016 Clayton. The fastball set 93, 92. In 2018, the fastball dies to 91. He's throwing fastball, slider almost equally. 2019, 90%. The whiff rate on the slider, 44%, 33%. 2020, same thing. Fastball, 17% whiff, slider, 35% whiff. Clayton Kershaw's up here. Clayton Kershaw's up here mentally. He's a competitor. He's a dominant. He has Cy Young's, former Cy Young champ. It's not that Clayton's only, I want to say he's 33. You know, we're dealing with Scherzer and Verlander in the 37. So he's still pitching. How's he going to do it? How's he going to get the whiff rate? Clayton Kershaw starts leading slider. He's throwing 860 sliders to only 660 four-seam fastballs. The slider is suppressing batting average to the tune of .198 for a 44% whiff rate. Whiff, 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 whiff. He's just throwing his best pitch. The four-seamer's still not good. It gave up 5 home runs. The batting average is .299. He's not throwing it as much, but he's got the curveball at a 32% whiff rate. He's reinventing himself. It's a new Clayton Kershaw. It's a Clayton Kershaw leading slider. We can scroll down on the run values by pitch. The four-seamer's not good. It's cold. It's in the blue. But the slider is a -14, a plus pitch, which he's leaning on heavily. The zone contact, 76%, in line with some of Clayton's best seasons. The chase is at 32%. That's exceptional. The whiff rate is one of the best of his career. A guy that was going 29, 22, 27, 27, dropped a 34% whiff rate on our heads because he's just breaking off sliders. You want to talk a little bit about the quality of the slider? You're not sure about the velo. Having high spin rates on the pitch disguises the pitch. Hitters are picking up the seams of the pitch and deciding, is that four-seamer? Is that something off speed that I should spin on? But when you wrap it up in really tight spin, it's just a blur. Clayton's four-seam fastball has a 2,500 spin rate. And the slider is at 2,650. I can tell you guys right now, Clayton is breaking off high spin rate sliders, and it's effective. The only thing not going well for Clayton is probably going to be his health and his back. What's he doing to get right? How's his yoga going? How's the body going to be? How's he going to perform? But he was a good pitcher last season, and he's probably going to look more like Clayton Kershaw 2021 than any Clayton that we saw previously. So just to close this out, just a couple names that I'm at least pushing up. These aren't definitive rankings, but all these pitchers I'm going to like. And the reason I'm talking about knowing these pitchers is because we got to ride the subway a little bit in season. One man's trash could very well be my team's treasure. If you wrote a guy who was having a cold streak for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and we have stories like that. We have to talk about Brandon Lowe and Kyle Schwarber. We come into the season very high in them. Kyle Schwarber is hitting 200. We can't leave him in the lineup. It's been 4 weeks. We're 6 weeks in. He's hitting 200. He got dropped. He's 40% owned. Everybody's got him on waivers because you can't have a guy hitting 200 in your season. But the difference for us when we know talent and we know raw power is that when we hear that a Kyle Schwarber is going to be thrust into the leadoff spot and hits home run, we're there first. We're buying him at 44%. We're getting him off waivers in all leagues. Same thing with B-Low. People drop B-Low. Oh, no, you can't drop B-Low. You got to ride it out because it can take a whole season to get those numbers. And it makes us faster on the subway. Thank you very much, other teams, for riding a guy for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, not being able to not tolerate it, then cut it so that I can get all the benefit into the rest of the season. And that's why we're getting comfortable with these pitchers. So some other names that I'm pushing up here. We talked Lance McCullers, Ranger Suarez, Cease, Kershaw, Max Fried, Logan Webb, a new pitcher. We're going to have to look at why he's so effective without really exceptional velocity. Julio Urias, Lance Lynn. I went back. Jack Flaherty has the stuff to propel himself and just suddenly be this good without looking at prices yet. We're going to have to think about where we mix Zack Flaherty into this. Obviously, Freddie Peralta. I won't go into more game logs, but Luis Castillo maybe had the worst season of his career last season, so I would buy in again there. Frankie Montas, Logan Gilbert, Yu Darvish, McClanahan. There's a little bunch of guys who have always been good, but I think you're going to go cheap, and depending on the price, you got your Trevor Bauer, Chris Sale, Blake Snell. These guys have had the stuff 2-3 years ago, and they can pop it at any time. Sandy Alcantara. I really love a Oscar Yanoa. And those are the guys, at least where my head is. And if I'm okay with all these players, because I don't think it's definitive. I don't think the health is perfect. I don't think from game to game, any of these pitchers, after the true, just wizards of Corbin Burnes and Max Scherzer are eliminated. All these guys are gonna come and go, but we have to be ready to get them. We have to have an appreciation for their stuff, and then we can weave that back in through pricing. I mean, Frankie Montas has great stuff. He throws hard. He's great in the shadow, but he has a fastball problem in the heart, in the zone. He could change one thing and fix that fastball or fix something in how he's doing in the heart, and all the pieces would fall into place. So hopefully that's some more tools for you. We got into a little bit of a working meeting. We got to keep working these pitchers. I know there's the lockout. I know that we don't know when it's going to start, but we're going to be ready when it happens. And we got to keep using some of these advanced tools, because I'm listening to the pods. CBS is trying to look at how important exit velo was to home runs, but they're still a step behind, because we know that what was more important than exit velo is launch angle. Big shout out to all the subscribers, grinding, making the sheet, keeping the momentum going. Holla back.